and with blood coming down her face, human growth hormone. Hey, doctor, this one, sort it out. They need to get something for these kids to do. And picked up a claw hammer. Yeah, that crowd is what he fell into. He then spots a human thigh, so already teenagery. Took him off the Lexapro. I think there's a reason why, Tyler. And put him on Prozac. Drink alcohol, smoke cigarettes, smoke pot. You know, the one where they check your pee. He wanted to kill his parents. And throw a massive party afterwards, and stood behind his mum watching her work. Not because there was dead bodies out the back. If you look close enough, you'll see the signs. Utter chaos inside that room. Everyone, how are you? How are we? Welcome back, or welcome if you're new. If you're new, I'm Victoria. I love all things sewing, all things true crime. I love doing a little project and talking through a true crime case with you. I like to record it all, put it together in some fashion to bring you along with me. So in today's video, I'm going to be making a relaxed pair of trousers, like so, again from Unfettered patterns. I will aim to leave the link either in the description or I'll pin it in the top of the comments. So grab yourself a cup of tea, you know it's gonna go cold, and let's jump right in. So today's case takes us along to Port St. Lucie, along the Treasure Coast in Florida. It's a quiet town near Palm Beach. It's clean, it's safe, it's beautiful, but it's mostly known for its welcoming, family-friendly atmosphere. But for mid-teens and older kids, there would be nothing to do, and they would often find themselves getting into bother, going to parties, doing drugs, and generally just doing really stupid stuff. So how does a police call to a party end with 2 dead bodies and one 17-year-old being arrested for it? This is the case of Tyler Hadley. Mary Jo, 47, and Blake Hadley, 54, were a happy couple. They moved to Port St. Lucie in Florida in the 1980s to be closer to Blake's parents. Mary Jo worked as a teacher in a school, and Blake worked as an engineer in a power plant. In 1987, they welcomed their first child, Ryan, and Ryan is said to have been a really easygoing baby. And then 6 years later, in 1994, they welcomed their second child, Tyler. Tyler was born a little premature, so needed a little extra support in life. Due to Tyler being premature, he had thyroid abnormalities, and this would make him look very different to his peers, which would lead him to having a very low opinion of himself and low self-esteem. Pockets. Mary Jo took him to the doctors, and at just 6 years old, he was diagnosed with depression. And at just 10 years old, he was medicated for it with a drug called Lexapro. So, you know, on the instructions or the warning leaflet you get inside medication, inside there it gave a heads up, if you will, an instruction, if you will. It stated inside there that teenagers and young adults may become more agitated, more irritated, and give them more energy and make them act reckless. Sorry, I'm probably giving you whiplash at this point, but it was during this time that Mary Jo got Tyler on the human growth hormone to help him, well, grow. He was a short, chubby kid. Because of his thyroid abnormalities, he was growing outways and he was short, so she could see it was bothering him, so she went to the doctors and she got him on the human growth hormone. In Tyler's younger years, he was known to be quiet and respectful. But coming into his teenage years, so already teenagery, so coming into those teenage years and then adding in the Lexapro, adding to his teenage angst, he became quite moody and irritated, often. And with that, Mary Jo took him back to the doctors to get his medication changed, having seen that the Lexapro, the directions, instructions, the warning label stated how teenagers could be irritated. She went back to the doctors. Hey, doctor, this one, sort it out. So she went back to the doctors, took him back, and they then took him off the Lexapro and put him on Prozac. Which comes with its own side effects, as well as irritation, agitation, and suicidal thoughts. But he started settling down into his new medication. So having been on his new medication Prozac and his human growth hormone medication, it was starting to become really noticeable that he was becoming really disruptive in class and being quite a nuisance and being quite rude. He couldn't sit still in class. He was loud in class. So Mary Jo took him back to the doctors, and this is where he was then also diagnosed with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It's one I should know. I'm ADHD. And with that diagnosis come a new set of medication. He was then put on Adderall. So he was on the human growth hormone, Prozac, and Adderall. Human growth hormone for his growth and get him up to his peers. His Prozac for his depression, and his Adderall for his ADHD. But still, even with all that medication, it didn't keep Tyler out of trouble. By his later school years, Tyler had fallen into the wrong crowd. You know, the crowd that, well, they're just the wrong crowd. The crowd that liked to drink alcohol, smoke cigarettes, smoke pot, and just generally be quite a nuisance around the town. Yeah, that crowd is what he fell into. And Mary Jo and Blake would often have to reel Tyler back in, ground him so he was removed from that crowd, put him back on the straight and narrow. They'd take all his things off him, put him back on the straight and narrow. But things just kept escalating things just kept getting worse. So one time, Tyler and his friends went out to a nature reserve and they spotted a couch. You know, normal kids, people would have just sat on it, maybe used it as part of a den. But no, Tyler and his friends set fire to this couch in the middle of a nature reserve, which quickly got out of control, and the fire brigade, fire department had to be called out and come and put it out. Because the fire brigade was called out, they had to go in front of a judge, and would you believe the judge that was presiding over that case let them all off really easy, let them off with a slap on the wrist. But not happy with that, Mary Jo and Blake, they weren't willing to let Tyler get off that easy. He needed a consequence, so they forced him into counselling. He had to go to counselling, and on top of that, made him do an at-home drug test. You know, the one where they check your pee? Yeah, they made him do that. Tyler's parents could just see him going down the wrong path in life, and they just desperately wanted their boy back. Due to his parents' strictness, Tyler would often rage onto his friends, saying how much he wanted to kill his parents. But like most people, his friends didn't take him seriously. They'd laugh it off. They'd be like, yeah mate, we understand. But what can you do? Tyler's friends just thought he was letting off steam. At 17, Tyler and one of his friends got into a really quite vicious, violent fight, and Tyler was arrested for assault and battery, and the judge gave him 1 week in the county jail. 1 week in the county jail. And then when he come out of the county jail, he was on house arrest for 2 weeks. Then one night he was caught sneaking back in through his bedroom window, and he was so intoxicated he didn't even realise that his parents were stood there and they'd caught him. And this was it. This was the final straw. They'd had enough. His parents had had enough, so they took all his privileges away. His phone, his car, all gone. And then they put him in an outreach program for substance abuse, and he had to attend it every day. Okay, I'm just going to get these overlocked and I'll be right with you. Fully cold. We'll press on. Tyler felt suffocated and he hated it so much he would often tell his friends that he wished he could take his own life. It just didn't seem to get any better for him. And then one day when he was talking to his best friend Michael, he said to Michael very nonchalantly he wanted to kill his parents and throw a massive party afterwards, saying it would be cool because it's not been done before. I think there's a reason why, Tyler. Michael just laughed it off because, well, he didn't think he was serious. The family had all gone to Georgia for a family vacation to visit other family members that lived out there, and it was on this trip that it was noted by other family members that Tyler was just acting really bizarre and strange. He was acting moody and agitated, and His parents just put it down to him being away from his friends. You know what it's like at that age. Well, it's been a long time since I was at that age, but at that age, your friends are your life. So they just put it down to if he was away from his friends, he was forced to spend time with family, and they just put it down to that. A few weeks after that trip, Tyler would seemingly start to settle right down, and his mum, Mary Jo, breathed a sigh of relief and would boast to her friends that she's finally got her son back. She's made it through. She's made it through the fog of teenagehood. And seemingly, with his life back on track and Tyler doing well, his parents loosened their grip a little. Because on July the 16th at 12:15 p.m. he posted on his Facebook status, "Party at my crib tonight, ... maybe, ? Everyone was down, but some of his friends did question how his parents were letting this happen. He seemingly was getting his life back on track. He was seemingly doing better. He just told his friends not to worry. Don't worry, he says. He says it's cool. And he said it was all cool, and it was all cool because at around 5 p.m. that day, he had snuck around the house while his dad was having a nap and his mum was working on the family computer, and took all their mobile phones, hid them, and got their family dog and popped the family dog in a cupboard. And then shortly after that, dressed in a black coat, black gloves, and boots, he took 3 pills and picked up a claw hammer. With his dad still napping, he quietly walked past his bedroom. He walked into the family room and stood behind his mum watching her work on a verse that she would be reading out in church the next day. He stood there for more than 5 minutes. Some say to build up his courage, others say it was to stand there and wait while his pills took control. But either way, he had a plan and he knew what he wanted to do. Tyler lifted up that hammer and just hit Mary Jo as hard as he could in the back of the head. Mary Jo just began to scream And with blood coming down her face, she turned round, looked at Tyler, and just simply said, "Why?" Only Tyler didn't respond. He just kept hitting her in the head until she was silent. She was no longer screaming. As you can imagine, Blake, confused, waking up from his nap to his wife screaming, he comes rushing in. It took him a second to take in the full devastation of what had happened. And with blood dripping off Tyler's hammer, his Mary Jo lying lifeless on the floor, he asked Tyler, voice strained, "Why?" Tyler then, with a crazed look in his eyes, responded, screaming, "Why the fuck not?" And then he lunged towards his dad, Blake. Blake ran out, trying to get to a safe space, trying to find his phone so he could call for help. But Tyler caught up with him, and Tyler just kept hitting him over and over again with the same hammer. Tyler didn't just hit him in the head, Tyler hit him everywhere, all over his body, and he kept going until the house fell silent. He then wrapped Blake and Mary Jo's heads in towels and dragged their bodies down to the master bedroom, and then threw the hammer he had used between them both. He then shuts the door and goes off to clean up. He is stated saying that there was more blood than he thought there would be. Completely high off his face, he manages to clean the majority of the blood off the walls, the floor, the furniture, but then he starts getting tired, and then decides the best course of action for him to do at that point is anything that he thinks has anything of them, anything that could possibly have blood on it, to throw it in that room, the master room, with his parents. So he throws in chairs, he throws in pictures, frames, clothes, pillowcases, extra bedding. He just threw it all on top of his mum and dad in a pile in the master bedroom. There was a mountain built on top of them with letters and photos. It was all in there with them, thrown in with everything else. And he just turns around, locks the door and walks away. After that, he then goes to the bathroom to clean himself up. He remembers clocking himself in the mirror, and he remembers as he did that, got it wrong. Let's unpick it and I'll carry on. So he states that he remembers walking into the bathroom to clean himself off, and he remembers seeing himself in the mirror and being really taken back by what he sees. His face was distorted, his face muscles had locked, and his jaw was pulled right back, and it was locked in that position in like a really creepy smile. He's noted saying that in that moment he was really scared because he could see it was him, but it was like he was looking at somebody else. He continued to clean himself off, and then he hopped in the shower. Once he got out of the shower, he put some clean fresh clothes on, goes back through to the kitchen side, takes his mum's debit card and heads to an ATM where he withdraws about $4,000. Goes back home. He walks in the house and to the family room and sits down at the very same computer his mum had just a few hours been at working. He logs back into his Facebook and at 8:15 updates his Facebook status to "Party at my house." Throughout the night, over 100 people came in and out of that party. 100 people. They need to get something for these kids to do. They were drinking, they were smoking, the house was completely trashed. And throughout the night, many people would bump into Tyler and they'd say, "Oh, where's your parents?" A lot of them were curious because, you know, it was an epic party. "Where are your parents?" So he would tell many people many different things. But the main three things that he would say: 1, they were visiting family back in Georgia. Or 2, they'd gone to Palm Beach for a vacation. Or 3, that he himself owned the house and his parents lived out of state. There wasn't any other rules for the evening but one: stay well away from the master bedroom. And everybody respected that. Oh, I need my goggles. Yay! And later that evening, when the beer had run out, he'd asked a friend, Mike, who was old enough, if he gave him the money, could he go and buy some more beers for him. So Mike agreed, and Mike, his girlfriend and Tyler all went to the gas station, the local gas station, to go and get those beers. And Mike went in on his own, presumably because if Tyler had been there, he wouldn't have got served. And while Tyler was there in the car with Mike's girlfriend, Tyler told Mike's girlfriend his parents was dead. She was a bit drunk herself and she didn't really think nothing more of it. She thought maybe they had passed away previously, so she thought nothing more of it. And when he got back, Tyler could see how big the party was. It was massive, and he could see that everyone was having a really good time. But as he walked through the house, he could see mainly all strangers. There was only a handful of people he actually knew. However, people did start noticing that Tyler was a bit quiet. He was a little down and appeared to be a bit paranoid. He kept looking through the blinds and everyone just assumed that he was probably just looking for police. But because there was a party going on, not because there was dead bodies out the back. And at about midnight, he drunkenly stood up and he announced to everyone that he wanted to do something really cool before he left. And most of the people, drunk or high, responded with, "Where are you going?" And he simply said he wanted to take his own life because he had done something really bad. And this is where he's starting to unravel, but people don't know. They can't see it, nor can they understand it. So then at around 1 o'clock, Tyler asks his best friend if he could step outside and have a chat with him. And so Tyler and Michael head out, and Tyler just keeps walking. And Michael's a bit like, what are you doing, mate? Like, I thought you were stepping out because it's noisy. But Tyler keeps walking down to a quiet part of the street, and Michael follows him. And it's here where Tyler tells Michael that he's killed his parents. And Michael rolls his eyes and swiftly turns around and starts walking back to the party. He's in disbelief, and Tyler sort of runs up behind him and says, if you look close enough, you'll see the signs. And on the way back to the house, as they're going in, Tyler sort of clocks Michael and shows Michael that Mary Jo and Blake's cars are still in the garage. But Michael shrugs it off, and his mind reasons with him, well, they could have just got a lift to wherever they're going. And then Tyler then goes as far as showing Michael the bloody footprint on the garage floor. And then as they're entering the house, Tyler's pointing out the spots of blood still on the floor and still on the walls. And Michael's jaw clenches. He starts to realise, and his eyes start to open, and he can see more and more. He's looking around everywhere, and he can see more and more spots of blood, smears of blood that looks like it's been cleaned up. But he continues to follow Tyler and follows Tyler to the master bedroom. Tyler unlocks the door. Michael looks in, and he sees the utter chaos inside that room. Chairs piled high, rubbish sprawled everywhere. But then he spots blood. He spots blooded bed sheets, and then he spots the drag of blood down, and his eyes widen as he's scanning the room. He then spots a human thigh, Blake's human thigh, poking through all the chaos. Michael, in utter disbelief, just turns around. He can't comprehend what he's seeing. He just turns around and walks off to the basement. And Tyler locks the door and then follows. Once in the basement, Michael asks Tyler why. He needed to know everything. He needed to know why. And Tyler says he's been planning it for weeks. He's had different weapons set aside, but he eventually settled on the hammer. He told Michael everything. He told him how he stood behind his mum, building up the courage, and then he did it. He told him how his dad come rushing in at the screams, and then he chased his dad and did the same to his dad. He told him about the weird look he had on his face, like the weird smile he had, the lockjaw in the bathroom. Michael couldn't believe what his friend was saying. It was a lot to process. Michael then asked Tyler for a selfie, and Michael later states that he kind of did this in shock, but he kind of knew this would be the last time he was going to see his friend, so he asked for a selfie and took the selfie with him. Then he heads back up into the party. While this was happening, another party was rumoured to be going on down the street, so people started filtering out and heading towards that party instead. And as they were filtering out, the teens were screaming, they were shouting, and a neighbour called the police and made a noise complaint. And it was during this time that Tyler had noticed that Michael wasn't there, so he calls Michael up and he says, "Where are you?" And Michael just told him that he left because he was tired and he needed some sleep. To which Tyler then told Michael to come back later, yeah, because I'm having another party. And then a few moments later, the police then come to the door, but the party had died down by then and there was only 20 odd people there. So it was fairly quiet, and the police just shouted through and told them to keep the noise down, and off they went. So at around 4 AM that morning, the people that are left at the party that are still there notice that Tyler has started acting strange again, and he's pacing back and forth in the kitchen, and he's turned all the lights off in the house, and he's cooking himself food. But then at around 4:40 that morning, he then pops back onto Facebook to update his Facebook status to let everyone know that there would be another party later on that day. We're 4 in the morning now, so later on that evening. And then it's shortly after that, the police then arrive back at Tyler's house. They don't knock right away, but they're peeking through the windows and they can see that Tyler is pacing back and forth. But when they do eventually knock, Tyler does come to the door, and he's wide-eyed with a really disturbed look on his face. Michael had in fact gone home and called Crime Stoppers and reported what he knew. They asked Tyler to step outside of the house with his hands up, and once he'd stepped out, they went over to him, grabbed him, put him down on the floor and put handcuffs on him. Police described his demeanour as incoherent and frantic. As officers made their way through the house, they could see blood on the walls and the floor. And as they progressed through the house and made their way back through to the master bedroom, Tyler started screaming from outside, "Don't go in there, don't go in there, you can't go in there." Obviously, officers went in there. Officers opened the door and they could see a large amount of blood on the floor and on the sheets. And with there being stuff just piled high, officers then started to remove things from the pile, like the chairs and the coffee table. And this is where officers then see Blake's blood-covered leg. And then this is where officers call an ambulance. And as they continue to remove items from the house, remove items from that room or move them, they come across a blood-stained calendar. So they pick it up And this is where they come across Mary Jo's arm. The autopsy shows that Blake himself sustained 65 blunt force trauma injuries. He suffered soft tissue bruising, had massive skull fractures, and a broken arm and leg. Mary Jo sustained 35 blunt force trauma injuries and had defensive wounds. It is said that sadly they would have felt every single blow, and they would have been aware that it was Tyler doing it. Tyler at the time was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, but due to juvenile sentencing law changing, Tyler was then resentenced with 2 life terms with the possibility of parole. All that senseless murder for a party. It's believed, there's many that argue that it was the mix of the medication. Many argue that he just had it in him. Drop the comments below and let me know what you think. And that is the insane, crazy case of Tyler Hadley. Let's look at today's make. I wish I had white elastic. I did, but it was too thin. Pair of comfy trousers with some pockets. And with that, all that's left to do is bid you farewell. Take care of yourself, take care of others. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And I'll see you next week with a new case and a new project.